Hey, I'm Warren Sprouse. You're on the Bible Forums. January 14th, 2018. We're looking at Donald Trump. Say, it's a Bible Forum. Well, stay with me. We've got issues with this president who calls himself a Christian but uses vulgar language. Or maybe is just rough and tough and tumble in the bargaining and all the rest of it. And we're saying, well, we've never had a president like that. I don't understand, Enter Scott Baio, Chachi. Scott was on Fox News this week, and he explained a very important fact about President Trump's troublesome and crude rhetorical style. In responding to attacks on the president's tone and general fitness for office, Scott Baio had this to say, quote, I'm going to help the media right now, okay? I'm going to try to help them. It's not going to go anywhere, but I'm going to try to help them because they've called the president. The president has dementia. He's an idiot and he's not mature. Did you hear the awkward sentence structure that I just gave you? It's indigenous to Baio, a product of his formative years of experience. And he explained it. He says, I'm from Brooklyn. President Trump is from Queens. This is what we do. We mess with people. That's it. Baio's talking about a way of expressing yourself that is very common in what he's called the outer boroughs of New York City, that include the Bronx and Staten Island, as well as Brooklyn and Queens. It's often a self-aggrandizing and hyperbolic, over-the-top selfism. And there are a lot of playful insults, Scott says. Trump spent almost all his childhood in Queens and still sounds like it. Even his accent and facial posture gives this away. People from the outer boroughs exaggerate everything. Now, according to accent experts who help actors prepare for parts, there are a few basic elements to the Queens accent, Queens borough accent. One of the most important is that the corners of the mouth pinch out and do work that in most accents is done by the jaw. Does that ring a bell? It should. It explains the chin out, lips puckered expression that Trump is so well known for. But more important than his accent and diction is the grandiose content of the speech, something the outer borough is known for. Hyperbolic analogy is extremely common, along the lines of, I'm waiting 3 days for a cup of coffee. You've been standing there for 2 minutes. It's not to be taken literally. It's a way, as Baio puts it, to mess with people, to express your displeasure. On the other side is praise. Praise is loaded with huge statements. It's not a good pizza. It's the best pizza anywhere ever. Almost all of Trump's utterances and tweets express either extreme pleasure or displeasure. Time and again, his failure to speak in the measured tone of what most politicians and media types want to hear and are used to, are what they're criticizing. They don't understand what he's trying to do. They don't understand how he's trying to do it. And the result are a whole litany of absurd stories in the news that make rational discussion about his presidency nearly impossible. The other day, last week, the nuclear button came up. Trump tweeted that his nuclear button is bigger than North Korea's president's button. In the press conference that followed it, White House spokeswoman Sarah Sanders said it was just a fact that Trump's nuclear button is bigger. When someone pointed out that there was no nuclear button, Sarah said the president was well aware of that. You could hear a duh Now, any fair minded person, especially one who's spent any time east of the East River, understands that by nuclear button, a term first used by the North Korean president, Trump meant the American nuclear arsenal, not a literal button on the desk. He was just basically saying, hey, you got a button? Well, I got a bigger button than you got. More than 2 years of watching and listening to this man should be enough for people to get it. But the media doesn't want to get it. The reality is they can't afford to get it. Now, in defense of the media, Trump clearly uses bridge and tunnel rhetoric tools in a way few, if any, other politicians ever have. Like lawyers, most politicians are incredibly cautious and precise with their language most of the time. But it's been more than 2 years since Trump jumped into politics. They should have some fluency by now. Tony Scaramucci, who was briefly Trump's communications director and is now back out on TV as a surrogate, puts it as colorful perhaps as it can get. He says the mooch is from the honorary outer borough of Long Island, right? Smack dab next to Queens. What does that mean? They understand this stuff. The media's continued inability to understand how Trump speaks, even when he is written about using truthful hyperbole, is a real problem. As Scott Baio pointed out, he absolutely uses it to mess with these people and to mess with foreign leaders like Kim Il-jung, whatever his name is. If instead of focusing on the absurdity of whether Trump thinks there's an actual large red nuclear button on his own desk, you look at the effects of his tweets directed at North Korea, and a vastly more important story begins to emerge. You see, shortly after the tweets, North and South Korea agreed to high-level talks. We can and should argue about whether this development is a foreign policy win or loss for the United States. There is a good argument on both sides, but the fact is, Trump's over-the-top language and brinkmanship worked. It caused action in what had been a slow-moving stalemate. Is that a problem? Well, it could have blown up. Coulda, woulda, shoulda. Didn't.